What's up, stream? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Hey, I forgot to change the title, so I don't know what the title say, what the notification said when y'all got it. But let me see. Oh damn, it say I'm on 2K. Hold on, let me change this. That bitch still say I'm on 2K. Welcome to the stream, chat. Damn, I could whole time I could title this joint birthday stream. It's just hit my birthday. It's 12:02. You dig? Alright, today. Alright, look, peep. This is what I wanted to show y'all, right? Y'all know how we always react to Mr. Hold on, let me make sure my mic working before I fuck up. I bet. Y'all know how we always reacted to Mr. Nightmare, right? Why the fuck? What's up, gang? Welcome to the stream. Why the fuck? He had this bitch. You see the members only video? He had this island joint on the members only, and then he dropped it for but he dead ass just had this shit in members only, and then he dropped it you know, for the regular YouTube, bro. That's why I would never waste my money on this shit. I ain't knocking nobody hustle, but like this shit, like, he rather drop in 2 days. He gonna drop this bit regular, like the Deep Wood shit. He gonna drop this bit regular. Like niggas who literally paying for the shit, pay for it just for him to drop the bit regular 2 days later. Like damn, that's crazy. But we was kind of lacking last time. Y'all want to react to the island horror stories first, or y'all want to go with the true new home stories, or the gas station? I mean, we gonna react to the true new home, gas station, and the other shit. To the other shit. All right. There's nobody in the chat, so I get to pick whatever one I want. Great.
Meet One Track Jack. He's a credit wrecker. He doesn't know that by focusing on one type of credit, he...
One Track Jack. Island. What's up,
This
gang?
happened last
Welcome to the
year.
stream.
I was 22 at the time, completely burnt out from work,
Watching that Mr.
and I was going through one of the...
He fucking dropped that bitch for the money, and then dropped that bitch for free 2 days later. That's why y'all still see me watching ads, cause I ain't buying YouTube Premium. They tripping.
This happened last year. I was 22 at the time, completely burnt out from work, and I was going through one of those stretches where everything in life felt like it was happening to someone else. I won't get into specifics, but let's just say I had a colorful past, and by that point, I was actively trying to put some distance between myself and certain chapters of my life.
Okay. Really?
What I needed more than anything was to disappear for a few days. We've all been there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I must have been venting out loud because one day at work, I found myself having a conversation with a coworker about this tiny island off the coast of Maine.
Oh no.
The way he described it, the place sounded almost aggressively boring. No nightlife, barely any tourists after dark, and most people just took the ferry out for the day and left before sunset. He said if you stayed overnight, it was like having the whole island to yourself, which was exactly what I was looking for.
Okay, yeah.
I found a vacation rental listing for a standalone cottage right on the shoreline. The price was suspiciously cheap, and it was available on short notice, which probably should have raised some flags, but I wasn't exactly in a cautious headspace. I booked it without thinking twice. The cottage itself was small, just a single room with a bed, an unused kitchenette, and a bathroom the size of a closet. It was set back from the water, surrounded on 3 sides by thick brush that pressed right up against the walls.
So the bathroom got a shower. Yeah, he said the size of the closet. Hey, I'm just asking important questions. This shit you got.
Front faced the ocean with a single window covered by this thin, semi-translucent curtain that didn't do much to block the view in either direction. The walls were paper thin. I could hear the wind moving through the brush like it was right next to my ear. The door had a deadbolt and a chain lock that both looked like they'd been installed recently, which struck me as a little odd for such an isolated spot, but I didn't dwell on it. I took the late afternoon ferry over and spent the early evening just walking around the island.
Wow,
it was kind of surreal.
You're supposed to lock your door. I hope you use that lock, my nigga. This is there for a reason.
Real, watching the place empty out as the day visitors filtered back to the mainland. By the time the sun went down, there was almost no one left. No streetlights, no ambient noise, nothing. I was pretty much left alone to enjoy the sounds of the ocean by myself. It was beautiful. I grabbed dinner at this little pub near the ferry landing. The bartender was friendly enough, but I noticed that she gave me a weird face when I told her where I was staying. On the walk back, I passed a small dock tucked into a cave maybe 100 yards from the cottage. There was a single blue motorboat moored over there. It stood out because all the other boats I'd seen on the island were larger lobster vessels. I made a mental note of it, but didn't think too much beyond that. I got back to the cottage around 10:30, locked the deadbolt and the chain, and settled in for the night. Up until that point, I was really enjoying the time away from everything. But of course, that peace didn't last. I realized my phone charger was busted, or maybe it was the outlet I was using. But the point is, my phone wouldn't charge no matter what I tried. I tried every outlet in the cottage. My phone was on low battery, and I was 100% sure it was going to die within the hour. Luckily, I didn't really need it to get back to the ferry. I had a physical ticket, but no one likes having a dead phone. I decided to just call it a night and go to sleep. I was exhausted anyway, and I did fall asleep pretty quickly actually. The exhaustion from the past few nights hit me all at once, and I was out within a few minutes of my head hitting the pillow. I woke up randomly in the middle of the night. I don't know what pulled me out of my sleep exactly, but once I was awake, I heard it. Footsteps on the gravel outside the cottage. They were close, right in front of the door, and whoever was out there was taking their time, which I could tell because there was a long pause in between each step. It definitely didn't sound like an animal scurrying around. I shifted in bed just slightly, and the footsteps stopped immediately. The silence that followed was uncomfortable in a way that I couldn't really describe. It stretched on long enough that I started to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing, or that it really had just been an animal. I didn't want to move, so I just stared at the ceiling in that same position. I'm not sure what I was waiting for, but I was so freaked out that I couldn't even think straight. And a few minutes later, the footsteps came back. This time there was no mistaking the direction. They weren't passing by, they were approaching. I heard them come right up to the entrance of the cottage and stopped directly in front of the door. At that point, my heart was damn near pounding out of my chest. I felt like they could hear it, but there was nothing I could do besides try and be as silent as possible. As if the situation wasn't bad enough, whoever was out there turned on a flashlight and tried shining it through the front door. I couldn't move because I was petrified in fear. That person clicked off the light and tried the door handle. I shut my eyes and prayed the deadbolt would hold, and it did. I thought that would be enough of a deterrent, but I was wrong. A few seconds passed, and then they tried again, putting more weight into it this time. Then came several hard bangs, one after another. The sound was so loud in that tiny little cottage that I actually flinched with each impact. The bangs activated my brain though. The threat was more real, and even though I was still terrified, I knew I had to do something. So without thinking, I jumped out of bed while that person was still banging on the door and crouched down behind it. I was fully prepared for what was about to happen, but instead of that person bursting through the door, everything went quiet. I stayed crouched down for a few seconds, trying not to breathe too loudly. And then, and I still remember this vividly, whoever was on the other side of the door spoke. "I know you're in there, Leo." I almost yelled out in shock, but I stopped myself. It was a man's voice, one I didn't recognize, but he somehow knew my name. He knew I was there. The footsteps moved away from the door and along the side of the cottage. I tracked the sound as it passed the bathroom wall and continued around. He was taunting me. He knew I was in there. My confidence was gone. Hearing my own name was enough to make me dizzy. It was the scariest moment of my entire life. Over the next stretch of time, I have no idea how long, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour, whoever was outside circled the cottage. I had no idea what they were doing, and a part of me was screaming for them to just break down the door and get it over with already. Eventually, the footsteps receded from the cottage. Then, from the direction of the dock, I heard an engine start. It was the unmistakable sound of a small outboard motor. I listened as it pulled away from the shore and faded into the distance across open water. I didn't sleep after that. That's not an exaggeration. I stayed awake the entire night. The second it was bright enough to see, I was out the door. The gravel around the cottage told the whole story. There were heavy boot prints circling the cottage multiple times. The prints led in a straight line from the cottage toward the dock and ended right at the waterline. The next day was honestly a blur. I returned the key to the property owner, boarded a ferry, and made it home. But I was not in a good headspace. Here's the thing that still gets me. Whoever was outside that cottage didn't come from the island. They came by boat, specifically to that cottage, and on that specific night, they knew my name and exactly where I'd be. The thing is, I have absolutely no
You ain't tell that name to that many people. You just got on the island. Come on now.
idea how they could have tracked me down. I confronted my coworker about it a few
You only told the girl. You told that one girl at the bar where you was at, bro. How you not?
2 days later, the one who told me about that island in the first place, and he swore up and down he hadn't told anyone about my trip. And honestly, I believed him. He looked genuinely freaked out when I told him what happened.
Every time somebody says
I meant-
they swear up and down, this is what I imagine. Let me show y'all what I imagine. Nigga swear up and down. Like what the fuck? The fuck, chat? There ain't nothing you can do.
Mentioned earlier that I have a colorful past. I'm not going to get into the details, but let's just say, I'm not exactly shocked that someone out there might want to find me. What I still can't wrap my head around is, how did someone track me to some random island off the coast of Maine? How did they know which rental I booked, and on which night? How long had they been watching me before any of this? I don't have any answers to any of those questions, and the worst part is, I still work the same job and live in the same place. Nothing has changed since then, but I have no reason to believe things are over.
I think it was on the island, bro. You dragging it now. You told it. Stop telling niggas where you stay at.
This happened many, many years ago. I'm a structural engineer, and at the time, I was finishing up my graduate thesis on...
Am I missing something? Then she clearly just... I mean, he clearly just told Shawty at the bar, right? He was like... I told her I was staying in a certain part of town, and she looked at me. She side-eyed me and shit. Like, all right. She said she looked at you funny. She gave you a strange look. That's how you said it. That's your hint right there. She said, "Oh, for real?" That's what she said. Her ass, "Oh, for real." She called the boys on her. She said, "Oh yeah, we got us one. Come on now." She don't just work at that bar. You think that shit paying her? She robbing niggas. She was with him. She was probably waiting on the boat. She got her boyfriend was finna hit a lick. Her finna rob it. It was his bitch there. They said, "Oh yeah, it's a rich American." I mean, wow, I ain't mean it, but that's the only accent I know how to make. But they like, I'm thinking they like foreign like type shit. Like, you feel me?
This happened many, many years ago. I'm a structural engineer, and at the time, I was finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation in marine environments. It was very boring, but it's what got me invited to Japan.
What he studying? Concrete what? Concrete degradation.
And
Niggas said concrete segregation. What he studied? Hold on.
this happened many, many years ago. I'm a structural engineer, and at the time, I was finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation in marine environments.
This nigga, that's a big word. That nigga said, he said, wait, hold on, run that back.
I was finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation in marine environment.
Nigga said he was Nigga said he was finishing up his his graduate. Wait, hold on. What the fuck?
And at the time, I was finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation.
He was finishing up his graduate thesis on concrete degradation. What the fuck do that mean? He just got 9.
Structural engineer. And at the
Wait, hold on. And he said some more.
This happened many, many years ago. I'm a structural engineer, and at the time I was finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation in marine environments.
Wait, hold on. I dumbed it down. My fault, my nigga. I left some shit out. I ain't even give bro his full credit. He said, hold on, let me make sure I get it right this
time. I was finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation in marine environments.
His graduate thesis on concrete degradation and marine environments. Oh, no. In marine environments. His concrete degradation in marine environments. Nigga, who the fuck telling this story? Squilliam Fancy, son? Nigga really want us to know, like, yeah, he, like, damn, bro.
They were finishing up my graduate thesis on concrete degradation in marine environments.
You smart, my nigga.
It was very boring, but it's what got me invited to Japan. This is all relevant, by the way. I was in Nagasaki for an academic conference. There was this professor I'd been corresponding with who had done extensive research on post-industrial decay.
Damn,
his name...
hold on. Who this story for? We're trying to keep up with you, gang.
Boring, but it's what got me invited to Japan. This is all relevant, by the way. I was in Nagasaki for an academic
all relevant for real?
Conference. There was this professor I'd been corresponding with who had done extensive research on post-industrial decay.
He said this the wait, hold on. I gotta dissect this, bro. I gotta talk about this. He said his professor he been corresponding with. He really had to use that word. He was talking to the nigga.
His name was Dr. Yamamoto, and he pulled some strings and arranged something I never thought I'd get access to. Okay. A research permit for Hashima Island.
Okay, damn.
If you don't know Hashima, you've probably seen pictures of it without realizing. It's this tiny island off the coast of Nagasaki that looks like a battleship, completely covered in crumbling concrete apartment blocks. It used to be a coal mining operation, one of the most densely populated places on Earth at its peak. They abandoned it in the 70s when the coal ran out, and it's been rotting ever since. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site now. Tourists can technically visit, but only on guided tours that stick to a narrow concrete path along the seawall. Civilians are expressly forbidden from entering the actual buildings due to structural integrity concerns. But I wasn't subject to the same restrictions, of course, which was thrilling and a little scary. I had to sign
fucking what? Concrete degradator.
An exhaustive stack of papers, basically waiving my right to damages should I injure myself or something. The morning of the visit, I took an early ferry from Nagasaki. It wasn't a tourist boat, but rather a smaller vessel arranged through the research office.
Okay, a vessel.
It was just me and my escort, a guy named...
Nigga said, I didn't take a boat, I took a vessel. Okay. Talk about
through the research office. It was just me and my escort, a guy named Takeshi. He didn't talk much.
Takashi.
I didn't really mind because I was so hyped about the excursion. The approach to Hashima plays tricks on your eyes. When it first appears within your line of sight, it looks deceptively small, insignificant almost. But then, as you get closer, the scale of it hits you. The seawall wrapping around the entire island, the apartment blocks stacked on top of each other. It really is something else. I had seen hundreds of photos, but none of them prepared me for actually laying my eyes on what I can only describe as a true wonder. Takeshi gave me the briefing on the dock. I had access to several buildings beyond the normal tour route. He actually had a list, but there were still rules, such as stay on designated paths, don't enter anything marked with red tape, don't remove anything, don't touch anything you don't need to, and stay within visual range of him at all times. He said that last part twice. I also had to wear him at all. Don't remove anything. Don't touch anything you don't enter anything marked with red. There were still rules. such as stay on designated paths, don't enter anything marked with red tape, don't enter anything marked with red tape, don't remove anything, don't touch anything you don't need to, and stay within visual range of him at all times.
Don't touch shit.
He said that last
Don't
part
look at
twice.
shit. Don't.
I also had to wear a hard hat, steel-toed boots, and these bulky reinforced work pants that made it a little difficult to walk.
Shit.
Despite all the
coming for. Alright, hold on.
Part twice.
Let me listen. I'm listening.
I also had to wear a hard hat, steel-toed boots, and these bulky reinforced work pants that made it a little difficult to walk. Despite all the excess gear, the first couple hours were amazing. I was taking photos, taking notes, completely in my element. Takeshi followed at a distance, occasionally glancing at his watch. He clearly wanted this over with. We entered one of the large residential blocks around midday. The stairs were intact, but barely. You could see daylight through the gaps in the landing. Takeshi waited on the ground floor while I went up, which I thought was a little strange given his whole stay within visual range speech. But I wasn't gonna. I thought was a little ending. Takeshi waited on the ground floor while I went up, which I thought was a little strange given his whole stay within visual range speech. But I wasn't gonna argue. It was kind of irritating having him follow me around anyway. I was on the 4th floor examining a section of wall where the concrete had completely separated from the rebar underneath when I noticed something off. The dust patterns were wrong. There was dust everywhere, obviously decades of it, but there was this path through it, like someone had been walking this route regularly. Not recently maybe, but often enough that the dust hadn't fully settled back. I followed it with my eye and realized it led to a room at the end of the corridor. I should have gone back down to tell Takeshi, which would have been the smart thing, but I was curious and wanted to check things out for myself. He probably would have just ushered me back downstairs anyway. Should have gone back down to tell Takeshi, which would have been the smart thing, but I was curious and wanted to check things out for myself. He probably would have just ushered me back downstairs anyway, depriving me of ever getting an answer. So I carefully walked over to the room and pushed the door open. I immediately noticed two things, both of which were incredibly unsettling. Firstly, there was this weird smell emanating from the room that I didn't recognize. It didn't really smell like anything natural, but I couldn't recognize it as any kind of human smell either.
That's that shit.
I know that makes no sense.
Y'all wanna see
but
the
that's...
island he on? Let me show you what the fuck he on. This nigga, this what this nigga at.
Basically waving...
Hold on. This what this nigga at. And he talking about, yeah, the tour guide, he keeps staying downstairs. He showed me the rules, but he ain't following his own rules. Bruh, his job, this nigga don't get paid enough to go up there. This is a abandoned city. This why I say Tekashi got nigga senses. Tekashi might got a little bit of black in him. Tekashi is his tour guide. That's what they said his name was. I didn't make that shit up. Go back and listen when he was saying it. He said his name. Anyway, this whatever they had to be in one of these. If they was in this bit, definitely ain't going up there. Look at this fucking building. But you fuck around, fall through the floor. Nigga crazy, bro. And he talking about, yeah, tour guide stay downstairs.
Obviously decades of it, but there was this path through it, like someone had been walking this route regularly. Not recently maybe, but often enough that the dust hadn't fully settled back. I followed it with my eye and realized it led to a room at the end of the corridor. I should have gone back down to tell Takeshi, which would have been the smart thing, but I was curious and wanted to check things out for myself. He probably would have just ushered me back downstairs anyway, depriving me of ever getting an answer. So I carefully walked over to the room and pushed the door open. I immediately noticed two things, both of which were incredibly unsettling.
Oh, y'all heard him say his name, right? Takeshi. They say his name Takeshi. That shit is clearly, it's clearly like right on with Tekashi. Like it sounds just like, so, nigga. I remember his name though. Like, come on now.
Firstly, there was this weird smell emanating from the room that I didn't recognize. It didn't really smell like anything natural, but I couldn't recognize it as any kind of human smell either. I know that makes no sense, but that specific smell was genuinely something I have never encountered before.
The second... They want a human smell. What the fuck? Nigga said, I ain't smell... do you got a fucking dog nose? Nigga said, no, I couldn't smell another human in this room. Damn, but y'all don't take showers? I mean, you feel me? I ain't judging nigga. Like, you feel me? Different niggas do different shit. They might not take showers out there. You feel me? I don't live out there, so that's cool. But them niggas, you feel me? Like, them niggas could just smell when there's people, they smell. He said he smelled the room, and he like, nah, nobody in there. Look, listen.
But that specific smell was genuinely something I have never encountered. I know anything natural, but I couldn't recognize it as any kind of human smell either.
He said it was an unnatural, unhuman smell. No, it's no niggas in there, not a body, but it's somebody in there. That's what he said.
I know that makes no sense, but that specific smell was genuinely something I have never encountered before.
I don't know how he figured out. He got all that information with his nose, cuz. Come on now, I don't know what type of nigga he is.
Second thing was even more confusing. The wall I touched was hot, or at least noticeably warmer than any of the other surfaces I'd felt on the island. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds trying to process it. You might be thinking the warmth was probably due to sun exposure, and yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too, even though there weren't any gaps in the ceiling. And I figured the smell could have been animals, even though I wasn't aware that any animals even lived on Hashima. I went back down and mentioned it to Takeshi. His reaction was immediate and strange. He didn't ask me any clarifying questions or even seem that concerned. He just told me that what I saw was impossible, and that no humans or animals lived on the island. He didn't even ask me to take him to that room. When I insisted that he follow me so I could show him the smell for himself, he flatly refused.
Hell no.
His reaction was really disturbing, to be quite honest. We continued the tour, and I started being much more observant every time he allowed me to enter a building.
Yeah.
I kept noticing weird things. Nothing fully revealing like clothes or anything like that, but weird markings and signs that something had been there. I say something because I didn't know whether I was seeing signs of a person or signs of an animal, which was the most confusing part. At one point, I mentioned more of these sightings to Kateshi, and this time he didn't even respond. Instead, he just pulled out his radio and spoke rapid Japanese into it. I had no idea what he was saying or who he was even talking to, but it was the first time he had used the radio since we got off the boat. When I asked him what he said, he told me he was checking the schedule. I obviously didn't believe him. But what was I supposed to do? Demand that he tell me what he said? I just ignored him, but I was significantly more unsettled after that. It was almost like he knew what was going on and just didn't want to tell me. We reached a taller residential block near the center of the island. Takeshi hesitated at the entrance. He actually...
This is the difference between you and Takeshi. Takeshi. I always say Takashi again. We'll fuck it up. You feel me? But his name's Takeshi, right? This is the difference between you and bruh. He would have been got the fuck up out of there. He would have been left. Why you still fucking around? The more you fuck around, the more you gonna find out. It's like mathematical correct. That's like mathematically. That's like, y'all get what the fuck I'm trying to say. That's like facts, nigga. That's simple math. Right? Why this nigga
stopped walking and stood there for a few seconds before following me in? I remember thinking that was weird. He'd been bored and impatient all morning, and now he was all attentive? But I didn't care. I wasn't gonna let someone else's attitude stop me from exploring. The stairwell was narrow and dark, but...
Let's explain nigga sisters for the non-niggas and the dummies. Alright? When you see somebody else run and you don't know what the fuck they running from, what you do? You get the fuck away from whatever they running from. It don't matter what they running from, they running. Obviously, niggas ain't supposed to be over there. You feel me? So when he see Takeshi, when he go into a building and he know Takeshi specifically told this this nigga, oh yeah, you're not supposed to leave away from the tour guide. Like he reading the instructions off the paper. Like tour guide and guest should stay at least this close together. All this. Mind you, this nigga on a tour by himself. But it's for his school shit, right? Whatever. He like, yeah, I'm not gonna go up there with you. Like they get to a building and it's this tall ass building. He like, yeah, I'm gonna stay downstairs in the lobby while you go up there. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just sit outside while you up there. Like I ain't going up there. Is you gonna like what you gonna do? What you gonna do? This ain't no multiple choice, John. This the essay type question. Y'all got your answers? All right, now let me tell you the correct response. Not a damn thing. You turn your ass back around and you say, you know what, never mind, I don't need it. You go and that tell you all you need to know. You don't need that shit. Because nothing is worth whatever the fuck he's running from. Y'all might not see that as running, but he running. He already know what the fuck up there, so he not going up there. You gotta learn how to read the room sometime. When you see somebody else not go, maybe you shouldn't go. You feel me? Maybe he knows something you don't. At least have a conversation with him. If he don't want to tell you nothing, the reason why he don't go, now you risking it. You either gonna risk whatever he's scared of that clearly can fuck him up but might not fuck you up, or you gonna take his word for it and just, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, I mean, it's cool to be a leader, not a follower, all that extra shit. But sometimes it's cool to just, you know, just follow a little lead a little bit. Follow a lead, you know what I'm saying? He clearly a leader. He made that decision for himself. It's cool to follow the lead a little bit. You know what I'm saying? On some real nigga shit though, I would never go in that building, and then even if I got it, my assignment to go up that bit, if I see the tour guide, I'll be like, all right, we finna go upstairs. He said, oh no, hell no, you go up there though. Hell no, I ain't going up there either. This shit already looks scary, bro. Look at this, but you not scared to fall through?
Else's attitude stopped me from exploring.
It looked like a fucking. This look like the Left 4 Dead map. A Call of Duty map or some shit.
The stairwell was narrow and dark, but structurally sound. We went up maybe 5 floors. Takeshi was right behind me the whole time, which felt like a change from his earlier indifference.
Oh, he was
and
behind
then,
you.
after walking into one of the corner rooms up there, I saw something that immediately validated all my previous concerns. Against one of the walls was a pile of blankets and a few empty bottles of water.
Oh, yeah.
There was no mistake about it this time. I was looking at definitive evidence of human habitation. I regained my composure after the initial shock and turned to show Takeshi. There was no way I was going to allow him to dismiss my claims this time. But when I stepped out of the room,
bro, he obviously got the advantage. He starts speaking in a language you don't even know. Bro, you should have left. It's so many reasons you should have been left. But I cannot feel bad for these people in these situations, because it's like, why are you not seeing these signs? Have you no instincts?
room, he was gone. I don't know why, but seeing those items in that room didn't terrify me until I realized I was alone up there. It was like Takeshi having disappeared unlocked my brain, and only then was I able to process how scary the situation.
See, that's what I'm saying, bruh. Now it's time for you to leave, bruh. You see some shit. You see, He said nobody. It's supposed to be no humans or nothing in here. No animals, no humans. You say you keep seeing shit. Then you see some blankets and water bottles. And then you turn around. Say Takeshi. You look back. Takeshi already gone. That mean you late. Nigga, you need to leave right now. What the fuck is you waiting for? Get the fuck out of there, nigga.
Situation truly was. There was someone else on that island. I suddenly felt a very acute urge to strip out of my gear and scratch myself. My whole body was itching and I was starting to freak out.
Ew.
I frantically made my way back to the stairs.
That threw me off. I thought he was ready to say to run. He said he felt an immediate urge to scratch himself. Nigga, what? I mean, this shit do look itchy. I ain't gonna lie, it look itchy in there, but fuck that. I scratch myself when I get out this bitch. Something else finna come scratch your head, okay? So a beast finna come out the corner. A motherfucking charger, a tank. The spitter.
Stairwell we'd come up, thinking I'd just run down and end the trip short. But no, as if things weren't bad enough, I turned the corner and realized the stairs were blocked. There was a pile of rubble spilled across the landing, enough that I couldn't get through. I didn't have time to think about whether it had collapsed naturally or whether someone had piled it there purposefully. I just turned and ran. I ran past that room and down the...
What you see, nigga?
I didn't have time to think about whether it had collapsed naturally. I couldn't get through. There was a pile of rubble spilled across the landing, enough that I couldn't get through.
Damn.
I didn't have time to think about whether it had collapsed naturally or whether someone had piled it there purposefully. I just turned and ran. I ran past that room and down the corridor, praying that there was another stairwell somewhere close by. I didn't care about the structural damage anymore. I was so scared and didn't care about anything other than getting the hell out of there.
You should have been.
As I was sprinting down the hall, I heard movement from somewhere behind me. It sounded like footsteps stepping out into the hallway.
Oh yeah,
I didn't turn around. No chance in hell. I just kept running.
Been left. Tasiki got the fuck on, man. He won't play that shit. He said, fuck this job. Fuck that walkie-talkie. That nigga got up out of there. You, on the other hand, he already knew. All he needed was a head start. That's why that nigga was waiting outside. He still got his head start on your head. That's just shit your fault. It was fair and square. Y'all was both at the same spot. You seen the shit. You turned around see if he seen the shit. He already gone. Yeah, he seen that shit. He got the fuck up out of there, bro. This nigga sisters went the fuck off. All he knew was, hey, bro. He ain't even say your name. You should have just noticed the nigga leaving like that. Like, I ain't gonna lie, bro. This kind of your fault. I'm just saying. You should have left. Now you talking about, oh, they trapping me. Oh, they pushed over the way I came. They put an obstacle in my way. They fucking, what they do? What he said they did? They scratching. They making noises behind me. They catching up, bro. They playing Home Alone with your ass now. It's over with. You already got, brother. That's why you gotta run.
The only problem was that it was like a maze in there. I was too scared to think straight, and I felt like I was running in circles. The whole time I could hear footsteps behind me.
You should.
At first I thought it was
Takeshi. That you so late, bro. You might jump out the window. If a nigga get up on your ass, hey, you by the window. You rather take your chances with the fall with him. Then it depends on how high it is. Cause what if you don't die? You just fuck yourself up. Damn. You gonna hit the bottom, leg break. Now you can't run. Now you can't run. Damn, that's tough. I ain't think about that. My fault.
But after a while, I realized there were multiple sets of footsteps, which meant I was being followed by multiple people.
They would have came back. They would have went straight downstairs. You would have been looking up. You would have on the ground like that, looking up. They would have came down, peep. They would have looked down. All you would have seen was the nigga head look down. And then you see the nigga face. you like this, you see a nigga face come across the jump. You feel me? And then all you see is once you see that face leave, you know they coming down to drag your head back in there, bro. You cook.
Found another stairwell, and I practically jumped down it. I don't remember much about getting out of the building. I remember daylight and then sprinting across open ground and then the dock. Takeshi was just standing there by the boat. Seeing how unfazed he looked took me from scared to downright angry. I started screaming at him about what I had seen.
You screaming at him about...
I remember daylight and then...
should have whooped your ass, because now you acting like a bitch. You talk about, you get down there, he already downstairs. But you mad because you ain't catch on fast enough, bitch. You ain't gonna get me killed too. Fuck. You come out there cussing and bitching. Oh, why the fuck you leave me? What? Nigga, you wanted to go up there. This for your school. You think nigga gonna die for your schoolwork? Like, fuck out of here. You should have beat his ass.
Sprinting across open ground and then the dock. Takeshi was just standing there by the boat. Seeing how unfazed he looked took me from scared to down.
You a grown ass man. You acting like a female. Oh, why the fuck you leave me? You talking about I start full on screaming at him. Fuck you screaming at him for? Like, what you gonna say? Cause you got chased out. Bitch, it was either fight or flight. You fled. You fled. You fled, nigga. You got the fuck out of there. At least you better be glad you alive. I would have whooped your ass and then left you right there. And left you for them niggas. You talking about you lucky to Siki was downstairs waiting for you. That's your problem. You lucky he was downstairs waiting for your bitch ass. Cause he could have just got the fuck on and went home. He was downstairs waiting for you to catch up. I would have whooped your ass.
Right, angry. I started screaming at him about what I had seen, about the people in that building, about him abandoning me, everything.
You abandoned?
I think I even accused him of piling that rubble up in an attempt to strand me in there. He barely even blinked. It was like he wasn't hearing what I was saying. I wanted to put my hands on him, but that would have been a terrible idea. He was my way off the island. He had all the power. I had none.
You wanted to put your hands on him. Bro, he would have... Bro, mind you, this nigga speak Japanese and you don't speak that shit. For you know, he can get your ass packed up in a second. He speak some Japanese shit on you. He speak some shit. He put out that walkie-talkies, speak some Japanese shit right in your face. That's how you know they coming to get your ass. You don't, what I'm saying is, you don't even know the language. Why you even cussing niggas out? He looked at you like your ass crazy. Cause you is. Fuck.
Like he wasn't hearing what I was saying. I wanted to put my hands on him, but that would have been a terrible idea. He was my way off the island. He had all the power. I had none.
I'm glad how you acknowledge that that's a fucking terrible ass idea.
The way he didn't even react to what I was saying only made me angrier. At one point, I actually kind of hoped that whoever had been stalking me in that building would turn a corner so Takeshi would believe me. He waited for me to finally calm down, and then instead of acknowledging anything I had said, he just said we were leaving.
Lucky! But Takeshi is the realest nigga in your corner. He let you bitch and everything. He said, bruh, we gotta go though. Like, nigga was just still trying to see you make it out alive. Cause he could have been left your bitch ass on the island. Then that would have been your ass for real, for real. He obviously got power, bro. That's why he ain't really worried for real. But you see, he ain't stick around. So that, bro, he told you the rules from the beginning. You the one breaking the rules at this point. Because if you see him not go, that means you're not supposed to go. It even says that on the rule book before you get there. Stay within a certain amount of feet of the instructor. Even if he lets you go. Why you think that's a rule, bro? He was just like, all right, do you, nigga. Because if you go fuck around, and you find out, you feel me?
Didn't know what to think. I was still pretty unsettled and scared at what had just happened, but I was also horrified that this guy was refusing to acknowledge any of it. It genuinely made me think that he knew something about what had happened. Or worse, maybe he had caused it himself. Maybe he had been the one to pile that rubble. But the worst part was that I had to sit through an entire ferry ride back to the mainland with him. I was genuinely worried for my safety, but we made it back, and that was that. As soon as I got somewhere safe, the first thing I wanted to do was report my sightings. That there were people on Hashima. That was extremely concerning. So I contacted the only person I could think to contact. The only person who had any connection to both me and the island. Dr. Yamamoto. But I couldn't get a hold of him. Fast forward 2 weeks. I was back in the US at that point, and I still couldn't get a hold of him. It was like he had disappeared. I tried my best to report what I had seen to the relevant authorities, but I don't think anything came of it. I don't think anyone believed me. It's been years and years.
No, but I don't think you was even supposed to put this story out, but you lucky. You should have just been glad you got out, bro. You still worrying about shit. Now they might come get your ass. Now you gonna be even more worried. I ain't gonna lie to him.
10 years since this all happened. But this is a story I'll tell anyone who will listen. Strangely, the thing that gets to me the most isn't what happened on the island, but what happened after. The fact that I couldn't get in contact with Dr. Yamamoto, despite him going to great lengths to arrange my visit to the island. The thing I regret the most is not taking more action to get to the bottom of what was going on there. If I had spoken Japanese, or if I didn't have to return to the US so quickly, I might have been able to do something.
Bro,
this is something I'm gonna think about forever.
Bro, you got off, bro. You was good. You ain't had to do shit. Why you feel like you had to do something, bro?
This happened a long time ago. I'm talking 10 plus years. It was during my very last semester of college. I was majoring in history, and I was deep into my senior thesis, which focused on abandoned institutional spaces, places like defunct hospitals, asylums, rehab centers.
Oh, hell no, they set you up for failure. What? Abandoned hospitals, schools, asylums? Bro, what? But whatever happened in this story, you asked for it, gang.
Majoring in history, and I was deep into my senior thesis, which
this nigga, but these colleges be sending y'all on monkey missions, bro. That Hello. Thank you. Thank you. I'm on. Yeah, I was ready to say I'm on 1%. Didn't get a chance to. I was trying to get a chance to talk. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can't see the chat no more. If I'm on one. What was we talking about? Oh yeah. So this nigga, he majoring in history and doing a thesis on what?
College. I was majoring in history, and I was deep into my senior thesis, which focused on abandoned institutional spaces.
His thesis focused on abandoned institutional spaces. The fuck? What they researching about it? It was a institution. Niggas don't use it no more. What's the search about? But they be sending these on these dumbass missions, bro. Why the fuck would anybody want to go somewhere like that? And then watch they send my boy Dolo.
Places like defunct hospitals, asylums, rehab centers.
Like hospitals, asylums, research centers. What? Hell no. Who the fuck want to go to an abandoned research center? But you not gonna find nothing good in there. What you think you gonna find in that bitch? I promise you not gonna find nothing good in that bitch.
Especially ones that still existed in or around major cities. One of the cases I was writing about was North Brother Island. It was this overgrown island right in the East River, technically part of New York City, but it had been completely abandoned for decades. As far as I know, it's still exactly the same, but I haven't been in New York City in forever, so I really wouldn't know. Here's a very abbreviated, but I abandoned for decades. Technically part of New York City. Jails, asylums, rehab centers, especially ones that still existed in or around major cities. One of the cases I was writing about was North Brother Island. It was this overgrown island right in the East River, technically part of New York City, but it had been completely abandoned for decades. As far as I know, it's still exactly the same, but I haven't been in New York City. It's River, technically part of New York City. It was this overgrown island right in the East River, technically part of New York City, but it had been completely abandoned for decades. As far as I know, it's still exactly the same, but I haven't been in New York City in forever, so I really wouldn't know. Here's a very abbreviated history.
Abandoned island in New York City. Oh, fuck no. What is it? A hospital? They don't put hospitals on no island. A whole island? A whole hospital island?
It used to house a quarantine hospital, then a rehab center, and then at some point in the distant past it became off limits to the public. Unless something's changed, you still need a permit to even set foot there. In fact, it's probably even more heavily guarded considering how seriously the US takes security and whatnot these days. That's all you really need to know about it, but for any fellow history buffs out there, feel free to do your own research.
Okay.
You might even find my thesis. I never actually planned on going, that would have been illegal, but I mentioned it offhand one night to two of my friends, Jansen and Jesse, while we were drinking. I was probably pissed at how long it was taking, knowing how lazy and unproductive I was back then. Surprisingly, they both thought my thesis sounded really interesting, despite the fact that neither of them were history majors. So I told them some of the interesting tidbits about the various places I was researching. The moment they realized one of the places was quite literally tucked away in the very city we were sitting in, they were hooked. Jansen and Jesse, and I guess myself by extension, were really into that whole urban exploring, edgy vibe back then. Back then, it was decently popular among young guys at the time. They both thought it sounded like the perfect target for an urban exploration trip, and I'll admit, after all the research I'd done, I was curious too. Not in a ghost hunter way or anything, but more like, if I was going to describe the place in my thesis, why not actually see it with my own eyes? Fast forward a few weeks, and that's how we found ourselves sneaking through Barretto Point Park in the Bronx at 2 a.m. with 3 solo kayaks in tow. It was one of the few spots along the shoreline where you could launch without attracting too much attention, and it was only about a half-mile paddle to the island. We had a bunch of supplies, probably more than we needed, but we figured we'd play it safe. The plan was to leave around 2:30, explore the at 2 a.m. with 3 solo kayaks in tow. It was one of the few spots along the shoreline where you could launch without attracting too much attention, and it was no point. Fast forward a few weeks, and that's how we found ourselves sneaking through Barretto Point Park in the Bronx at 2 a.m. with 3 solo kayaks in tow. It was one of the few spots along the shoreline where you could launch without attracting too much attention, and it was only about a half mile.
Excuse, oh yeah, we did it for school. I just did it for school, nigga. You snuck onto an island, and don't be like, oh, I didn't sneak. It's not like we couldn't go. Why the fuck y'all wait till 2 a.m.? These niggas want to sneak onto an abandoned island. Why? For what?
Paddle to the island.
No, you don't got no.
We had a bunch of supplies, probably more than we needed, but we figured we'd play it safe. The plan was to leave around 2:30, explore the island for a few hours while it was still dark, and be back before sunrise. It felt stupid and thrilling at the same time, the best kind of fun. Getting our kayaks into the water was surprisingly seamless. I guess I hadn't anticipated how deserted the park was going to be at that time of night. But as soon as we started paddling toward the island, the reality of what we were doing began setting in. There wasn't anything stopping us anymore. All we had to do was paddle at that point, and a bit of nervousness started creeping into what had just moments earlier been pure excitement. Regardless, we made it to the island. Pulling the kayaks onto shore was a bit of a struggle because of all the overgrowth. We had to push through some tall reeds and weeds just to find a somewhat stable spot to leave them.
I don't know ghost hunter stuff. That's exactly what y'all was on.
Once we were on solid ground, the three of us just kind of stood there for a second, taking it all in. It was dark, obviously, but we had flashlights, and the moon was bright enough that you could make out the general shapes of things. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it all was. I know that sounds cliche, but you have to understand lights, and the moon was bright enough that you could make out the general shapes of things. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it all was. I know that sounds cliche, but you have to understand, we were technically still in New York City. The Bronx was right there, maybe half a mile away, and yet it felt like we were in the middle of nowhere. We started walking inland. It didn't take long for Jansen and Jesse to realize just how big the island actually was. I had told them beforehand that it wasn't some tiny little rock. I think I even showed them a map at some point, but they clearly hadn't internalized it. As we made our way deeper, we started passing building after building. Most of them partially collapsed or so overgrown that you could barely tell they were buildings at all. At one point, Jesse stopped and just stared at this one structure that had a tree literally splitting it in half. He said it looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic video game, like one of the ones where you're scavenging through the ruins of civilization. He wasn't wrong, that's exactly what it felt like. There was something almost alien about the way nature had reclaimed everything, like the island was actively trying to swallow any evidence that humans had ever been there. I remember thinking that if I didn't know better, I'd assume the place had been empty for centuries, not decades. We explored a few of the more intact buildings, shining our flashlights into rooms that hadn't seen visitors in God knows how long. Most of them were empty, but in one of the larger buildings, Jansen found something on the ground near a doorway, a half-empty can of spray paint. He immediately wanted to use it, and Jesse was on board. I told them no, that it felt disrespectful, not just to the buildings, but to the history of the place. People had lived there and people had died there, but they pointed out that there was already graffiti all over the walls, some of it pretty elaborate, and argued that a little more wasn't going to make a difference. I didn't have the energy to keep fighting about it, so I told them I wasn't going to stop them, but I wasn't going to stick around and watch either. In hindsight,
He's talking about, I'm not going to stop them, but I'm not going to stick around and watch. Nah, you wrong, bruh. You stuck on the island with these niggas. You stuck on the island with these niggas, and then you finna graffiti they shit. They finna get on your ass, bro. And you with them. You came with them. Fuck. You think they give a fuck that you just, I didn't agree with them, but I didn't participate in it, though. Like, they don't give a fuck, bro. You're, like, you with them niggas. If they catch your ass, like, nigga, if they don't catch them, you think they ain't gonna chase you? You just think, you like, oh, no, I went with them. And they just gonna be like, oh, my fault. Go check. No. Nigga, they gonna grab your ass up, bro.
Veering off was probably a mistake. I made my way through a few more rooms, trying to take mental notes for my thesis. But the further I got from Jansen and Jesse, the more unsettling everything became. It's hard to explain unless you've been in a situation like that. When you're with other people, even in a creepy place, there's a buffer. You can tell yourself it's fine because nothing bad would happen with witnesses around or whatever. But being alone is a completely different story. I was walking down a long hallway in one of the larger buildings. I think it might have been part of the old hospital complex, when I heard Jesse's voice call my name from somewhere ahead of me, from one of the rooms further down the hall. The sound of it made me jump, and even though I knew it was him, I was still pretty freaked out. I started walking toward it, and something began to feel off. For Jesse to be ahead of me, he would have had to take a completely different route through the building.
You sure that was Jesse, bro? I was just ready to say, gay. It's just, somebody just sound fishy about that.
That wasn't impossible. There were multiple hallways and stairways.
Because he said,
but it would
it's
have...
the way he said it. He said, I heard Jeffrey's voice call my name. Like, he said, nigga, if it was Jeffrey, he would have just said, oh, yeah, I heard Jeffrey. Nigga, I don't know if that's Jeffrey, gang.
Meant he left Jansen almost immediately after I did, and then speed walked or even ran just to loop around and end up in front of me. That didn't make any sense. Why would he do that? There were too many rooms branching off from the hallway, and I couldn't tell exactly which one the voice had come from, so I called out to him, asking where he was. I got a response almost immediately from a room just a few doors down on my left. It was definitely Jansen's voice, and all he said was, "In here." I walked toward it. The doorway was dark, darker than the hallway, which was already pretty dark,
Nah.
and I couldn't see anything inside.
No.
I figured Jesse and Jansen were probably just messing with me, trying to scare me for wandering off, which is exactly the kind of thing Jansen would think was hilarious. I stepped into the room without really thinking about it, and swept my flashlight around the room.
Without
I
really
landed on a figure standing in the far corner of the room, facing the wall. For a split second, my brain tried to convince me it was one of my friends, but it wasn't. It couldn't be. Whoever this was, they were really tall, easily 6.5 feet, maybe more.
Damn.
Neither Jensen nor Jesse were anywhere close to that height.
Damn.
I can't express how scary seeing that figure was. I screamed. I couldn't help myself. I ran out of that room as fast as I could. I didn't care about being quiet anymore. I was yelling for Jansen and Jesse to run as loudly as I could. I've never been more scared in my life. I felt like whoever had been in that room was going to catch me, or something else would jump out from one of the many pitch-black rooms I was running past. I found my friends near where we'd originally split up. When they saw me sprinting toward them, they just started running too. We didn't stop until we reached the kayaks. Once we caught our breath, I told them everything. They didn't believe me at first, which I completely understood. If Jansen had told me the same story, I would have assumed he was messing with me. But I pleaded with them to believe me, that I wasn't making it up, and after a minute or so, they actually started to look more scared than me. We decided to just leave. Whatever we'd come to see, it wasn't worth sticking around after that. But right as we started driving out, which them, I found my friends near where we'd originally split up. When they saw me sprinting toward them, they just started running too. We didn't stop until we reached the kayaks. Once we I ran out of that room as fast as I could. I didn't care about being quiet anymore. I was yelling for Jesse were anywhere close to that height. I can't express how scary seeing that figure was. I screamed. I couldn't help myself. I ran out of that room as fast as I could. I didn't care about being quiet.
Come outside, they just jump and shit. I was like, oh, my fault. I forgot. Like, I ain't mean to do that. That's my bad.
Anymore. I was yelling for Jansen and Jesse to run as loudly as I could. I've never been more scared in my life. I felt like whoever had been in that room was going to catch me, or something else would jump out from one of the many pitch-black rooms I was running past. I found my friends near where we'd originally split up. When they saw me sprinting toward them, they just started running too. We didn't stop until we reached the kayaks. Once we caught our breath, I told them everything. They didn't believe me at first, which I completely understood. If Jansen had told me the same story, I would have assumed he was messing with me, or something else would jump out from one of the many pitch-black rooms I was running past over the years, but I never have. For one thing, I'm pretty sure the doorway was dark, darker than the hallway. I walked toward messing with me. I ended on a figure. Brain tried to convince me it was one of my. They were really tall, easy close to that height. I can't express. I ran out of that room as fast as I could. I didn't care about being quiet anymore. I was yelling for Jansen and Jesse to run as loudly as I could. I've never been more scared in my life.
Well, I guess you care about these niggas. Shit. If that was me, I would have ran smooth past their ass. Then I would have been like, run. Feel me? You gotta let yourself get a little ahead. You ain't, what? You can't fucking, you ain't gotta outrun the junk that's chasing you. You just gotta run out. You just gotta outrun the niggas who running with you. Come on now. These niggas, Jason and Jeffrey, they cool, but they ain't really like forever friends. Like, you feel me? They ain't really forever friends. They ain't worth your life and your mom and all the people at home. They ain't worth them. Like, fuck that.
I felt like whoever had been in that room was going to catch me, or something else would jump out from one of the many pitch-black rooms I was running past. I found my friends near where we'd originally split up. When they saw me sprinting toward them, they just started running too. We didn't stop until we reached the kayaks. Once we caught our breath, I told them everything. They didn't.
Take off, nigga. That nigga already running. I gotta get my stride up. Fuck you talking about?
Believe me at first, which I completely understood. If Jansen had told me the same story, I would have assumed he was messing with me. But I pleaded with them to believe me, that I wasn't making it up. and after a minute or so, they actually started to look more scared than me. We decided to just leave. Whatever we'd come to see, it wasn't worth sticking around after that. But right as we started dragging the kayaks back toward the water, all three of us heard it at the same time. It was faint but distinct. A moaning sound coming from somewhere in the darkness behind us.
What?
It sounded like a woman, an older...
This nigga said a moaning sound coming from behind us. What? On the island? He said it sounded like a woman.
Woman, either crying or wincing in pain.
An old woman.
It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough that we could hear it clearly if we focused. None of us said anything, but I could tell Jesse and Jansen were losing it. I was too.
Nah.
My hands were shaking.
You making that shit up.
We finally got the kayaks into the water.
You lying about the shit. You making that shit up though. You said you seen a nigga that was 6'5".
The paddle back felt like it took forever, but we made it. The whole drive, none of us could stop talking about what happened. We went over every detail.
You seen a nigga that was 6'5", but you ain't see but you heard the old...
Trying to make sense of it, trying to come up with some rational explanation.
old woman
But the thing I kept coming back to, the thing that freaked me out the most, was the voice. Because that was definitely Jesse's voice I heard in that hallway. I know Jesse's voice as well as I know my own. And what...
Nah, you making that shit up. You trying to make this seem like... You shit. You crazy.